Hey, welcome back. So now we know how to work with a local repository, meaning that it's still just on my machine. That's not good enough because I want to use this to share my code with other developers. I want to use this so my code is safe, so that I know that I can always get it from any machine that I work on. So that's why we want to now push this to a cloud solution. We want to make something in the cloud. And github.com is the place to go, or Bitbucket. So those two are the ones I will talk about, and we'll start out with GitHub. Since I'm using the GitHub desktop client, that just makes sense. To get going here, we need to go into github.com, the address is right here, and on github.com you have to create an account. So if you haven't already, then make your first account. It's just filling out these guys and say sign up, and then you're logged in and ready to work. I already have an account, so I'm just going to sign in. Going to add my username and my password and logging into github.com, and now I got a lot of projects running already. You might not have all of this information on your machine. Maybe you already work with GitHub, so you have some of it. But the most important things, I'll just give you the overview here of how you can work with that. Now, here you have all your repositories. Here you have all the repositories that you somehow worked with. You might have commented on them. You might have made bug reports. You might have just be working with other people on some projects. They'll be here. But the most important thing for us right now is up here. Here we have two things. One is your profile. If you want to change anything in there, this is where you do it. The other one is adding new repository. So the plus here is where we start. So I'll say new repository, and this is where we begin. We're going to build the first cloud repository now. This is one way to make your new repository. I'll show you others in the next lessons. So I'll make a new repository. Here I'll give it a name. It can be any name because it's going to be prefixed with the user that you're logged in with right now. So right now mine is going to be called asuma/something. And I'm going to call mine test1, just to have some name. And right away I'll check if that name exists already. If not, then I'll get the green check here. Awesome. You might give it a description if you want to. Just a test project here. So I'll choose next if it's public or private. Now, GitHub compared to Bitbucket, GitHub makes everything free for you if you're public. You can have as many users working with you as you want, but you have to make it public. But if you want to make it private, you have to pay a bit of money. That's how GitHub makes their money. Bitbucket, on the other hand, they make everything private, and you can only have, I think it's 3 users added to that private project. If you want more users, you have to pay. That's how they make their money. So both are very good ways to share your projects, but if you want to go private, you can for free go to Bitbucket. If you want to go public, I would use GitHub because that's just the mainframe right now, those two. Good. Then we have something here called a README file. You can click that and it'll just add kind of a default file for you that other people can read about. Why did you make this repository? What is it about? How can I use it? You can make a very, very cool loading page that people will read right below your project so they can see why you built this source code. That's a good thing to have in there and to put some information into. The next thing you can add is a gitignore file. I don't want to dig into gitignore yet. I'll do it in one of the next lessons because it's an important file to know about, but it's in the basics, the very basics, it's just a file to tell Git what files you do not want to push to your repository, what files you do not want to send to the repository, what files you want to be only on your local machine. And that will make sense later, but just accept right now that you have these gitignore files. You can also add a license file, information about those if you want to, and then the last thing you have to do is pretty much just create the repository. So now you have your first repository actually created. Let's just get that down to our machine, just to see if you can remember what happened in the last lessons. We want to clone it now. We want to make a clone to the local machine of this repository. And here it is. You can do a clone. I'll just open this. I'll copy it, this URL right here, just like we did in the first video. I'll open my terminal. It's right here, the Git shell. And then I'll just make a local clone. And I think you guys should try this out yourself. I'm in the work folder. I'll do a git clone. I'll paste in the URL I just copied from in here. Remember the URL I just copied from right here. And I'll just use the clone. And I'll say I want to clone this to the test folder. There we go. I'm done. Now I have it locally so I can do cd test. And now this is actually a Git repository and I can start working with it. So now I have it both locally and in the cloud. What else could I do? Let's just remove that test folder again, just to show you another way to get this down. I'll just delete the test folder, but here you can see it's actually there with the Git folder and everything, so everything is up and running. Let me just delete this guy. There we go. And now you could also actually, because I'm using the desktop client, I can just say open in desktop. I'll say launch application, and hopefully, Bajumi, it asks where do we want to store this. So now you have more of a UI way of doing the same thing. I'll just say I want to store it inside work. And there we go. Now it's cloning it down into work, and everything looks exactly the same. So that's all for this lesson. Now you know how to create a basic repository in the cloud, and then we'll start working with it later. See you in the next lessons.